In this video, we're going to add details to the torso. The first thing we want to do is to add the color. So let's go ahead and press number 1. And let's go into the front view. Go ahead and grab the vertices. And let's make sure that all these vertices are located right in the middle of our scene. And it kind of looks like they are. However, one thing that you could do is to select those in case there are not, and you can move them out, then hold down X, then hold down X in your keyboard, and that would make it snap to the middle. Okay, mine looked okay. So let's go back into object mode. And now let's go into mesh, mirror. You can go into the option box and make sure that we have -X selected. Click apply and close. Now you'll be able to see how's your character looking like so far. Now let's select the top edge. And let's create the base of the color. Probably gonna bring this down a bit. Actually, make sure all of them are selected. I see some floating vertices here. If you got that same issue, make sure to get rid of those. They can become problematic if you don't fix them immediately. And we can also fix this geometry, as right now they're all merging right there in the middle, and we see the same thing on the back. To fix that, I'm probably gonna grab my multi-cut tool and just like that. Go to the edge, enter, do the same thing on the front, click and enter, click and enter. And I just want to point out that there's nothing wrong with this. It's just that I much rather have 4-sided polygons if I can help it. Right now there's no need to keep having triangles, so I'm gonna go into my edges now, get rid of those and just have nice 4-sided polygons right there through the center of my character. Now I'm gonna grab the edges all the way around. And let's now make a couple of extrudes here. So first off, let's extrude upwards. Okay, somewhere there. All right, so once we extrude upwards, we'll now go back into our vertices, select that middle vertex right there, and we're gonna open this up to create the opening of our color for the character. To do that, we can go into Edit, Mesh, Detach Component. Detach. Now, if we go back and select that vertex, now we can just kind of move it away, just like so. It's important to know that at this moment, this geometry is no longer symmetrical. So it is a good idea at this moment, since we made that change, to reset everything. So in order for us to do that, we can go back to the faces, go to your front view, select 1/2, delete that, go back to object mode, and let's go back to mirror it. Go to the option box and let's merge threshold, change that down to 0.0005 and hit apply. Now this should keep things pretty symmetrical in our end. Let's head back to the edges, select everything but that actual V shape, make sure to deselect that. And at this point, we can now rotate this slightly on the front view. And now let's go ahead and extrude. We can extrude at this point outwards. Move it up slightly. Let's extrude one more time. This time around, we'll bring this down. We can also scale that up slightly. At this point now, we can manually start adjusting our vertices so that they match better our reference. As you work with this, make sure to keep in mind that you should be working on both views, not just in one. Let me go ahead and fix my front view now. Remember, this doesn't have to be exact. However, when you see stuff along these lines, this just means that you have an extra vertex that does not need to be there. So make sure to get rid of that. and kind of double check, right? And whenever you have weird deformations, it's more likely that you will have a vertices that should not be there in the first place. Okay, and another thing is, like, as long as you have something that is close enough, you should be good to go. We're not looking for 100% accurate here representation of the drawing. Reason being is because, you know, the drawing may not be perfect. A lot of the times we do have to work with whatever we are given. So therefore, again, if you do something that is close enough, that should be good enough for you to keep going. Now, one thing that I'm noticing here, and probably you are too, is the fact that these polygons here are black. Now, if this happens to you, what this means is that these polygons are being turned inside out, right? You would see all the polygons in the interior would be completely blacked out, where these ones are gray. As you work with these characters, you want to make sure that your polygons are all grayed and not blacked out. So one simple way that we can fix this, and it's actually going to be beneficial for us, is to add additional geometry to the very top. This will allow us to actually add also some thickness into the color. What we want to do first, it will be to add an additional edge loop around here. This will allow us for better manipulation. We'll repeat the same thing here. 2 additional loops. And now we're going to select the polygons for our color. So we're going to go into faces, select those. Keep selecting all those loops up until you reach that V of the color. Before we continue, let's go into edit, delete by history. Now we're going to go into edit mesh. We're going to duplicate, apply. And now we're going to push on the blue arrow on Z inwards, just clicking and dragging. And this will give you a nice thickness to the color. So local transfer Z on mine is going to be -369. If that value works for you, you can use it. If not, again, just translate on Z inwards to give you that negative that we're looking for. Now let's go ahead and fix the direction of the faces. Let's go ahead and select the loops that you would like to reverse. So all these blacked out areas, we're going to go ahead and select them. And now we can go into mesh display, reverse. At this point, we're looking at 2 different objects. Let's select them both, delete by history, and let's now go into mesh combine. Now we're going to go and select the edges. And we're going to go one by one into edit mesh, bridge. Now we're going to change the divisions to 0. And if one keeps popping up, we can go into bridge, menu options, and change this to 0. And let's go ahead now and continue the same process throughout the whole entire color. Let's go now and continue this process around the entire color. All right, go ahead and adjust it slightly. Then press the number 3 and see your results. Remember, at this point, we can keep on adjusting this as much as we need to make it closer to our references. Probably I'll edit a little bit of the size. Not too much though, but definitely something. But at this point, we're ready to move on and keep on adding more details to our torso, including the cuffs and maybe a line that will go through the middle of the shirt. All right, let's continue. Right now things are looking pretty good. I'm gonna go back to my faces and I'm gonna press number 1, delete half, as now we're gonna be adding a lot more details to this. Remember, as you go through this, you can always go up, back, and fix and adjust as needed. We're not looking for perfection, however, we're looking for something that looks close to our reference. Sometimes as you work with this, you'll find some faces kind of going through each other. It's not a big deal. Just make sure to go back at some point and address it. Now, if you're finding yourself kind of going back and forth between the two views, not being able to match them perfectly, that is not a big deal. Remember, these drawings were done fairly fast just for the class, just to have something for our class. They're not as accurate as they could be, so therefore just be patient and understand that we can always go back and fix it the best we can. So we can always just end up in a happy medium. So something that just looks close enough to our character should be good. Do not feel too much pressure on perfection, if not in something that just looks close enough. Always hit 3 to double check where things are at. It's looking pretty good. Let's go back to 1. Let's now focus on the bottom area for the shirt. You'll notice here a bit of an opening as well. Let's go ahead and grab the vertices and start pushing them around so that they resemble our drawing a little closer. Grab the faces from the bottom. Let's get rid of those. Make sure you have nothing else selected. Let's go ahead and delete that. Let's go to the front view. Sorry, side view. Probably bring some of this a little down. Okay, so again, we'll compromise somewhere in the middle for the lack of accuracy. Now let's work with the cuffs. Let's bring this down just like so. Now let's add an edge loop right through the center here. We can add the vertices or we can grab the edges. Or we can scale those in to do the best we can so that we can mimic our reference. All the way up top here. Maybe that area will benefit from another edge loop. Whenever we add edge loops, we have more control on how soft or how sharp our objects look. Let's go ahead and keep moving some of these in place. All right, let's take a look on how this is. Okay, great. At this point, let's go ahead and select the faces, those entire edge loops. Same thing through here. Although it's kind of, the geometry is going through there, we'll fix that here in a minute. And let's extrude this out on local Z. Start, as you do this, make sure that you're seeing how everything is translating. All right, great. Go ahead, press number 3. Start noticing how things are looking. Back to 1. If you want things to look a little bit more sharper, especially here, remember we can do that by just adding some additional extra loops. The closer you put them together, then the more sharper they're gonna look. Same thing we can do towards the bottom. Very good. So it's looking nice. Let's go with the faces. Let's go ahead and select all of those. And because we have some geometry going through, we just want to scale that up a bit. Just slightly, not too much, but just enough so that the geometry doesn't go through. All right, it's looking much better. The next thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and tackle this area as well as this one for the vest on our character, as well as adding some thickness to the bottom. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, at this point, we can probably soften some of this geometry down a little bit. Probably going to be selecting these vertices and then kind of just bringing them down slightly so that my polygons get to be slightly more softer. Okay. At this point, I would probably select the faces, select that entire loop, just like so. And we're going to go ahead and extrude that one time. We can rotate, or sorry, we can move on translate Z to offset that a little bit, giving us a nice edge there. And then what we want to do is that we want to keep this here very sharp, however soften this area. One way that we can go about that is by grabbing the vertices, selecting these vertices together, the one closer to the body, and then merging them together. So edit, mesh, merge, edit, merge. Now we'll repeat the same process all the way around. You can press 3 on your keyboard, take a look at the results. So it's looking pretty good, but one thing that I would recommend would be to add a couple of edge loops. Down here to actually add a little bit more sharpness to the bottom right there. So let's go ahead and add that, and let's add one more on the outside. Now when we press 3 and we have that smooth preview, we actually get a sharper edge going around. Very good. We're now going to repeat the same process to create this top part of the vest. Now, it is possible that sometimes you may not have the necessary geometry in order for you to create the type of cut that we created here. So in this case, we can make that manually by using the multi-cut tool. And we can start somewhere down here, where we just click and then drag as we go through our character. You would see it's almost like creating a trail, and we actually can stop it at that very point. Go ahead and click enter. You would see that now you would see that now we'll end up with mostly 3-sided polygons, which are fine, but there's going to be some polygons, like this one's for instance, that will have more than 5. That would be 5 or more. We may need to edit these ones a little bit more. One thing that you can do is to actually merge some of these vertices together to decrease the number of polygons. Let's go ahead back into our vertices, and we can maybe grab these two and merge them together. Now this will give us 1, 2, 3, 4-sided polygons. Over here we have 3, 3. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. 4. And then it finishes here, which works out great. What we're going to be doing now is creating or selecting the edges that we just created all the way through there. Very good. We're going to add a couple more so that it goes all the way around, allowing us to create that vest. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and bevel it. So go into Edit Mesh, Bevel. You can now separate it into fraction. So you can click and drag, take the segments down to 1. We can add the fraction, and there you will see how we create a nice edge for us to use. Let's make this relatively thin. Maybe about 0.3. Very good. Now let's go into our faces. Select those. Just like so. And of course, we can come in and start manipulating this so it looks a little bit more rounder. But as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do that. All right, somewhere along those lines, that looks about right. Let's go back, and with those polygons selected, we're going to extrude. Just like we did before. Extrude on Translate X. That looks about right. And now, just like we did before, we're going to take the edges from the inside and merge them together. Select the vertices, select those edges, and let's go and merge. And just like so, we're going to go through our entire model. One thing that I would advise is to get rid of these faces here, the one closer to the edge. As they will not be needed. All right. See your results. You will see now the vest there. Let's add some more geometry to it using the edge loops. Lastly, let's mirror the actual torso. First, go into Edit, Delete by History, then go Mesh, Mirror, okay. Things look good for the most part. We have some artifacts here. This is more likely due to some floating vertices. We just delete those and that takes care of that. Yeah, try to keep a watchful eye for those, as sometimes they will just kind of appear as part of your workflow. Okay, so when you would see these kind of like holes, and there you go, another floating vertex there. When you see this just means that these areas or these vertices were not really close enough to the edge. So because we already did some adjustments, I think the simpler way to go about it now would be to manually just merge these together. So we can just grab those two and then merge them. If you do have more geometry than you want there, remember you can always just, you know, grab those and delete those as well. So for instance, grab the whole loop, you can delete that, kind of clean it up a bit. Something like this, I think it's just going to be way better anyways. All right, and now we'll go down here, grab that complete edge, and let's add some thickness to the shirt. Let's go ahead and extrude that, push that inwards, extrude one more time, and push that upwards. You can always go into object mode, click number 3, kind of start seeing what you got. Remember, edge loops is going to make things tighter and better. So just by adding one more edge loop there, makes it look that much refined. Maybe another edge loop here. Maybe one here across. Let's take a look on how that feels. All right, definitely looking good. Feel free to add some more, maybe towards this corner, so that way it makes it a little bit more sharper, closer to our reference. And same thing here if you wish. Now notice how here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sided polygons. One way that we can fix this is actually to make some cuts, and that literally takes care of that. One quick way that you can take care of this will be to add another edge loop and then to make some cuts. Through there, and now that should make that should make the situation much better. So as you can see, we have now 1, 2, 3, 4-sided polygon, 1, 2, 3, 4-sided polygon. All right, let's move this a little bit, a little more. All right, here we go.